Originally, the opening of the film still has a map, but it was originally going to be a lot more. This is a funny story. It's going to be a lot more detailed than that. And the first iteration of the design for the animation for the opening credits and then the closing credits, I showed everybody, on the production team. They're all sitting around and they all go, it's great, but it really looks like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones.
Okay, really? Okay.
So I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's obvious. I mean, those guys from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
All those guys grew up the same time I was growing up.
Sure, yeah.
So we all have the same influences.
Yeah.
So it's, that's just showing it.
Well, that's
the map
a pretty standard fantasy stable, too, having the map.
all the
by
books.
And,
Every book
absolutely.
you read has a map, starting with Tolkien and all the Pern and all the other fantasy novels that have the map. It's a real staple of the fantasy.
Yeah, you got to know what's going on. You got to be able to follow the action.
So I wanted it to be I wanted those to be fairly prominent pieces throughout the film. Plus, it's soldiers. Soldiers also use a lot of maps.
Right.
For terrain and stuff like that. And, Top's obviously got this serious affection, shall we call it, for maps, because he's got a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, welcome to Name Redacted Podcast. I'm Chris Nielsen.
I'm Alexander Fulmer.
And with us this week is director Michael Babbitt.
It's nice to be here.
You want to talk to people and let them know what you do and...
Well, we just finished producing our first feature film, The Last in Line. It's a fantasy-based film set in a completely original world. It's about 12 soldiers who are part of a mercenary unit that are given a final mission, which is a suicide mission, and how they spend the last 90 minutes of their lives. We just premiered it last November, and we're doing a comic book convention circuit all year long. We've got 9 appearances now between now and the end of May. At 9 different conventions.
Nice.
And we're hoping that expands as we start pushing it.
So have you been to any cons yet, or
no?
You're just getting ready to? Okay.
Yep. Well, we went to we went to Con Carolina last year, but it was before the film. The film had been shot, but it hadn't been finished.
Yeah. Okay.
So we showed some preview scenes down there.
Yeah.
And we did a panel and did some talking there, and we went to another. Well, we were supposed to premiere it at Conapalooza in October. Mm-hmm. But we missed that date by about a month because it wasn't quite finished.
Right,
So we're going back. We will be going back to Con Carolina to show the full feature.
Okay.
And Conapalooza as well. Those are 2. That Conapalooza is in October, and Con Carolina is the end of May, beginning of June. It's like the 31st, the 2nd, I think.
So going into this, you said this is the first feature film that you've done. Mm-hmm. What have you done prior to that? You
a lot of short films.
Yeah,
a lot of short films, commercials, industrials, promo videos, music videos, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So what?
All that stuff's on our website, our main website, which is bombshellstudios.com.
Okay. So what got you? What kind of shorts were you doing before? Was it stylized stuff, or was it mostly more like client work, like that kind of stuff?
Oh, no, well, the shorts?
Yeah.
The commercials and promos and stuff
Obviously.
like that was all hired stuff. The short films were all original material.
Okay.
I've done some cinematography, but mostly directing. We produced I think something like 10 shorts in 5 years.
Okay.
And 8 of those 12 shorts in 5 years. 8 of those short films were actually related to another feature film that we tried to get produced here in North Carolina.
Okay.
The budget was a little bit too big for this area to handle on an independent level because there's not really that kind of support for a film of that. If you're not over $5 million, but you're not a short film, there's a vacuum in this area about the kind of support that you can get. So we spent 3 years developing that and trying to get that done here. And when we didn't, we opened it up, and it's now in the hands of some producers in LA. But we shot 8 little featurettes, short films between about 4 minutes long and 10 minutes long, that are about each one of the main characters that are in the feature film.
Right.
3 years before the events of the feature film.
Okay. So what made you decide to transition from that going into trying to do a feature length? Was it just okay, now it's time. We've been working on this other project, and that's not going to work out. So let's try to find something that. we can't nail it.
Do you want the truthful answer, or do you want the sugar-coated artist?
I want the sugar-coated one first.
Okay, the sugar-coated one is
Dark
because,
place.
well, as a filmmaker, I love to make films, and I've always wanted to make films, and I wanted to make a feature film.
Right.
And, I want to be a successful, popular filmmaker and get my stuff seen by people and stuff.
Okay.
Like that. Now the real answer is because if I'm going to quit this business finally,
Yeah.
if I didn't shoot a feature film, it would never get out of my blood, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to walk away and go, I did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I don't want to walk away from it.
Right, but you can be comfortable.
But try making a living at being an independent filmmaker.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So and at my age, I'm not going to be the new upcoming hot shot because I'm not.
That is a rare thing to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of I would be satisfied with shooting Hallmark movies. I don't care.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly
Putting
don't
something
care
together and
if
you
I
can
can
do something.
work
Yeah.
and get paid doing
Right.
it.
Yeah. And still have that creative outlet where you're
yes.
feeling like you're
Yeah,
accomplishing
and if
something.
that's not going to happen, I needed to get it out of my system. So it was important that this film get made.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to just do something. I'm not going to just, especially something on my own. I'm not going to do something on my own that I just go, we got to do something just to get it made. No, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, this film, The Last in Line, I started developing the story January of 2015.
Okay. So
It
what
just
was
premiered November 2018.
So you started that's when you turned into development in pre-production, or is that when you actually beginning to started to write it and figure out kind of the
That's when I started working on the idea for what kind of film, what kind of script we were going to do.
Okay.
And then in May of that year, 2015, after doing a bunch of research, I'm really very disciplined about. I do a lot of research about various different things. And
Sure.
when I was trying to come up with what we could do, we had to think of in terms of what kind of budget we were going to be able to afford. Because one of the things about the other feature film is it's a large enough budget that there's no way that we could produce it
right?
because we couldn't afford to produce it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And that's something certainly that getting the first film under your belt too helps give you some leverage moving forward to be able to be like, hey, I am capable of just signing all the things and writing down all the numbers and making people show up and get a thing done.
yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and that's a common conception of a common perception of the industry. But I've been learning more and more that a lot of that really isn't necessarily. It doesn't really.
Translate.
I mean, it can't hurt.
Right, yeah.
Obviously, but it doesn't necessarily help open any doors.
Right. Yeah. Well, it seems like one of those things, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but it seems like one of those things where it doesn't open the doors necessarily. Like it doesn't replace networking and meeting people and knocking on doors and trying to do that stuff. But it does help when you get there to be like, hey, you're not taking a gamble on me.
It can be something that they can go that can help assure. But I mean, with the other feature film, the one the LA producers, at that point when they decided to take it on, I hadn't directed a feature film yet.
Sure.
And that's actually one of the questions I asked them.
Yeah.
Like, why are you guys so interested in this?
Yeah.
Because I was a little nervous that are they going to try to push me out of it?
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
because they know, it's a first time director, we don't have to worry.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, why are you so interested in that? And they said, well, believe it or not, when you're looking for investments, a first time director, if you have other specific key components, key positions in
Sure.
the film, like the cinematographer
Okay.
and the assistant director and the line producer, if they're all industry people who've worked before,
Yeah.
they're almost not going to worry about whether or not it's a first time director or not.
Interesting.
So
I can see that.
Makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
well, and you got other people that if you really fuck something up,
Right.
the assistant director's
Yeah.
gonna be there and say, that's probably not the way you
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it lets you, especially coming in, because you wrote the first in line or the last in line, right?
I did not
You
write.
did not write.
The actual writer is Christopher Lee Jones.
Okay.
He's the guy who wrote the actual screenplay.
Yeah.
He and I together, though, created the world and the story, and we work really, as the director and the writer, we work so hand in hand
Sure.
together. But he actually wrote the
Okay,
screenplay.
but so you were involved through the development process in
Yes.
plotting the script
Yes.
and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So that makes sense too, because then that as a first-time director, you're bringing somebody in too that does have a clear vision for it. It hasn't done anything wrong. Like you're saying too, you have the fail-safes in place to make sure that the production process goes smoothly, but it allows you to execute on that that original vision.
Yeah.
So I guess speaking of which, like, what made you decide that was the script you wanted, like the story that you wanted to pursue?
Well, that was part of the whole, like I said, research process. Because when I was coming up, we had to think about, okay, because with the Endless Whispers, back to that a little bit, being not, we couldn't pay for that. And so that means other people have to be involved. And so whether or not that film gets made isn't real. I can't really guarantee I will get this film made.
Yeah.
So with The Last in Line, again, coming back to the whole thing that if I'm going to walk away from this, I need to make sure that I film. So this is a film we have to get shot.
Yeah.
How are we going to make sure this gets shot?
Yeah.
So it all came down to, if we have to end up funding everything, which we funded pretty much everything except $3,000 of the film, and the budget was about $130,000.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So yes, through a lot, but in order to guarantee that gets done, how are we going to do that? So I did a bunch of research about stuff, and believe it or not, the story originally, way back before a word was even written in the script, the original concept was actually going to be like slightly post-apocalyptic, like 2 years after a post-apocalyptic event. Because then, we thought, well, we can use modern dress, we have modern, we're not having to worry about apartments, stuff like that.
And costuming, set design, all that stuff.
But when we started working on the story, it just wasn't gelling, and we were like, well, and then I don't remember if it was Chris or me. I honestly have no idea who it was that, hit on the idea of doing fantasy.
Yeah.
But when we did that and started thinking about that, then I started, well, how would we do costumes? What could we do? What would we do for the set of this? And I just started doing all kinds of research. When we finally decided, this is what we could do, that's where it really started taking off. That was around May of 2015, and then Chris started working on the story, the actual writing the script.
Yeah.
We had sort of outlined general ideas. We would talk a lot about characters, character motivations, things like that, plot elements. A lot of the plot elements are his because he's really good at plot.
Okay.
Really good at plot.
Yeah.
And I think on the opposite side, I'm kind of really good about character motivations.
Yeah.
As a game master,
right.
Make this
right. Because when you're running a game, you're not in control of the plot at all.
Well, and I could care less about the plot.
Right.
I like to see.
I want to
throw out something and see how the characters
pit you against you. Here's an NPC that you're gonna like and you're gonna hate, and there's loot there somewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's that's
Alex doesn't know anything about that.
Oh no,
you're such an instigator as a DM.
No, I disagree. I feel like you're misrepresenting.
You prefer to let the dice talk, right?
No.
Alex has never punched a DC on anything, not even one.
Yeah, I would never do that. I would
do that.
I would never make it better or worse or easier. No, I'm definitely all about the dice are the.
Yes, well, I'll own up to it. If something ends up being too easy, and I think dramatically it's going to be more interesting and more difficult, I'll fudge the DC.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it, though, right? Is I feel like being a good game master is not so much about it's the illusion of free will. It's not actually free will. It's I made a decision, and it did impact the end result and where the party decided to go and how we were able to manage through all these things. But it's a little hand to God in there.
I think there's a lot of free will to it.
Yeah,
you let the players do a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah,
but I like the character interaction.
Right.
I like to watch characters develop and see a character go from a concept of, my character's a loner.
Yeah.
Let's take a stereotypical.
Sure.
My character's the loner. He doesn't like. So the first session is always dealt with the loner character is always about. Oh my God, dude! This is the adventure. Will you please get in the
hurry
game
up! Come on, I'm not running two separate campaigns.
And then but as you develop that character, and if you've got a player that will develop you see the loner still being a loner, but start to actually
warm up,
part of the
find
group.
some incentive.
Yeah. I like stuff like that. So, and I like that stuff in my films as well. So we work really.
So is that so? When you started writing it, did you have like as the character person was he already plotting stuff out, or were you like here's the cast and kind of the vibe I want to have? Or like where did you start?
It was kind of all of that.
Okay, just like
yeah. I mean, we would spend. I mean, the first draft was finished by he had the first draft finished by August of that year.
Okay.
So it took him about 3.5 months maybe to write the first draft. And I got to tell you, the first draft was freaking. Actually, I remember getting to about page 30 because he was sending me like 10, 15 pages at a time.
Okay.
And I get to page 30 and I called him up and I said, "Fuck you, don't send me any more pages." And he goes, "Why?" And he goes, "Because I want to know what's going on next and you don't have it for me. So I want to read it and, not in this piecemeal stuff."
Yeah.
That drive me. I was like, oh my God, because it was really good. And when we finally finished it, and he would call me if he would, we talked a lot about the basic plot outline, the elements of the story, what was going to happen. Spoiler alert, there are characters that die in the film. I'm not going to say who dies, but there are characters that die in the film.
In a Last Stand fantasy film? No way.
But believe it or not, those characters changed who died in the process of the writing.
Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So he would make discoveries, like he calls me up and says, I know we talked about so-and-so being the one that dies at this particular point or for this particular reason, but it would make so much more dramatic sense. And when he said it, I was like, oh my God, dude, yes, of course, that makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. So, and it was a constant ongoing for 3 months. We would talk almost daily, chatting and sending stuff. So it was,
So you brought up the costuming. That's definitely one of the things that stood out to me the best. Like, did you bring in a costume designer, or like how did you get to? Because you definitely nail the look of it. Like it starts up, you see the costumes, you see the scenery, and it really feels like that fantasy setting. So like what went into trying to make sure that you had that nailed down?
Well, we did hire a production designer, but before we hired the production designer, in my research, the thing that convinced me that we could do this was cosplay.
Yeah.
I hadn't really known much about cosplay. I'd been to a lot of conventions. I was going to conventions again, like way back before it was the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Like 1980 was my first convention, Archon in St. Louis, Missouri. But I hadn't been to one in like the past 10 or so years. But so cosplay wasn't nearly as big a thing. And when I started reading about cosplay, I was like, some of these costumes are fucking amazing.
Incredible. Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, how do they make these? These must have cost like thousands of dollars. So I'd look, what did it cost him? And the dude to be like, this is all the material. It cost me like $115.
Yeah.
I was like, you've got to be shitting me. Well,
there's no way.
I think they fudged it a little bit.
Yeah. But a lot you can do if you catch sales and stuff, especially if you're doing similar costuming and you can get things in bulk.
Techniques, and I realized that Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, I think really, really helped the cosplay world, because I think a lot of the techniques they developed, or maybe it's vice versa, maybe cosplayers way back then, that was something that they borrowed from, but I think those techniques have trickled down into cosplay, because, they had to come up with, at that time, a very limited budget.
Yeah.
They had to come up with, outfitting an orc army.
Yeah.
How do they do that on that little?
Right.
And I realized that a lot of the techniques they use are what cosplayers are now using.
Yeah.
I don't know which came first, but so we started doing that research. And I was like, okay, so we need to look into. So I contacted a bunch of people in the cosplay community, and eventually we ended up with our costume designer, Anne-Marie Grossman, who is obviously, you can tell, does just a bang up job for the costumes. And some of the pieces, some of it was made, some of it was handcrafted. Some of it was, a lot of it was stitched together, pieced together.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time on medieval Renaissance, one of the big cosplay costume places. Some of the armor pieces we bought.
Okay.
The weapons were all rented.
Okay.
We actually rented the weapons.
That definitely helps some too.
Yeah. Well, we rented them from a stage combat outfit out of New York.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic, and the weapons are great as well.
Yeah.
But the weapons themselves were rented, but everything else was put together by our amazing costume designer.
Yeah.
And that bled. Obviously, you mentioned the production design, the set design as well. Our set designer and our production and our designer and our art director were just. So here's a spoiler.
Okay.
This isn't really a spoiler, although. If I say it, you'll be looking for it when you watch the movie. So keep
I'm here
that
for it.
in
They don't
mind.
care. Whatever. It's spoiled.
The walls,
Yeah.
that's all styrofoam.
Oh, really? That's awesome. I definitely didn't catch that.
Yeah, the walls are all made out of styrofoam. Now they've got a frame on it so that
Sure.
people could lean against it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's all 3/4 inch sheet styrofoam that our production designer dressed and then obviously with all the pieces that they brought in to fill out the barn and stuff like that.
You're talking about the cosplay stuff. It is crazy how like now that the internet is starting to get more mature, it's crazy to me how you're getting like grass level, like the enthusiasts are getting so good that they're in so many different ways. Like if you're looking for even like a camera operator, like here's this dude that's just like 21 and posting stuff on Instagram, and you're like, oh wow, okay, that guy really knows what he's doing. And the cosplay stuff's amazing. Like I'm constantly amazed at how much. It's just the YouTube thing. I don't know. Like I want to know how to do a thing.
The ones I end up really liking are usually the ones where you can tell they're really into the details.
Yeah.
Because there are some where it's not bad, but when you get close up to them, because one of the things my production designer, she comes from a stage background, that she was really worried about with stage. She goes, I don't know what this is going to look like on camera, and I'm like, all you have to do is it's different from theater because of the way you paint something in the theater. Most of the time, the audience might be at closest to a set piece.
Right, it doesn't need to be screen accurate.
I might be this close to you, but I can stick a camera right up in its nose.
Yeah.
So think about that when you're looking at it. You got to be able to look at it up close. It's the same thing with cosplay. I like the cosplay where you can get up on it and it's like, now they're incorporating, you see some of these science fiction ones where they're incorporating smoke and lights into the device.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do now. I mean, like circuitry's gotten so cheap. You can pick up like an Arduino for like $20, $30 and control anything you want to, and just hook it up there, run some wires to it, and, cover it up, and it'll be great. I'm sorry, I can nerd out about that stuff for so long.
I'm with you.
As you can tell, obviously, like with the printer and stuff.
I've got thousands of photographs that I saved when I was doing my research that I gave to the costume designer. That was like, for influence, and getting to look at some of that stuff. It's just freaking amazing.
So one of the things I noticed too, when we're going through watching the film is obviously a lot of it's taking place like close quarters, like one set. It's them in that last stand, and it almost had, like I was telling Gavin, it almost had like a Anne Frank kind of feel to it, where everybody, because they're cut off from the outside world and they're stuck there. So what did you do to be able to try to build the suspense and let it kind of like snowball and extend through the film to be able to facilitate doing it in that way?
Well, the first thing is you start with a good script.
Yeah.
And I think Chris did a really good job of helping to build that tension. Funny story. After he finished it and he sent it to me after I read the first draft, and I was like, dude, this is really freaking good. I mean, for a first draft, this is really good. So, I mean, it went through like 6 or 7 other drafts, but one of the things he said to me was, if we pull this off, we deserve an Oscar. And I'm like, why? And I said, because we don't show any of the fights. We don't show any of the bad guys. And I'm like, yeah, but that, Jaws, you don't see the shark for 78 minutes into the film. You see the results of that. So it was kind of around the end, we don't have the budget to show a horde of Nosk war armada walking across the plain out there. We just don't have that kind of budget. And I think if we tried to do it without that kind of budget, we could pull something off. Yeah. But I think it would
if
be
you come
more
up short, that's
that's
gonna be one of those things people really point to.
Monster.
I have a lot. I mean, there's a lot of films from the 80s and 90s, a lot of horror films that are, to me, a letdown, kind of letdowns, because they do this great build up, but then they get to the last 10 minutes and they show the monster and it's a guy in a rubber suit.
Right? Yeah. There's no follow through on it.
It doesn't work. It takes you right out of it.
You like what?
I like Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got away with it.
probably the guy we'll ever see this. Should be fine.
So just good script, a lot of talk with the actors. I reiterated over and over again constantly that the shoot was 17 days long, but the film takes place in 90 minutes.
Right.
It's actually pretty. It's almost there. We fudge a couple little time moments, but for the most part,
it's real time.
Real time. Yeah. And so I'm like, so 17 days we're filming. You guys got to, and they're just coming back from a search and rescue mission, where they were followed. They managed to shake their followers and kill them, but they have no idea if they're going to get counterattacked at any moment. Yeah. Plus,
and they're trying to regroup at the same time.
And then they're getting orders for their next mission, which is in an hour from when they actually get there. Yeah. So there's not really in the film. There's, even though there's some moments that are a little more personal, a little more intimate with some of the characters. The characters themselves can't really relax because it's not. Let's put our feet up. Let's put our heels up on the chest and I mean, we have one character, Marco, who is awesome because he's the only one who sleeps. He's the only one that actually gets any sleep during the whole film. And he's the one that they call the new guy and stuff like that. But that kind of talks a little bit about his past, where he comes from. He's like, this is no big deal. I can sleep through this shit.
I've seen worse. I lived through way worse. You're gonna be in trouble. Yeah.
So I'm like, sleep, sure. And he's out like a light. Yeah. But it's a lot of that, and same thing. Make sure the production team was always on. We were always on our toes, and just keeping a real close tab on too much, on letting in front of the camera, letting anything relax too much. I kind of talked about on a spectrum. If you think about there are several moments in the film where I think the tension ramps up to like 95, 98, 100%, especially at especially for the well, that's a big spoiler, so we're not gonna say that. But it ramps up. But I said, but what we don't want to ever do is, I don't think we ever want to go below like 60, 65%.
Right.
So
that suspense is really important to the fact that they are caged up and cooped and having to deal with each other's personalities too. So if that falls down too low.
And they have no idea what's going to come from the outside.
Right. Yeah. So shooting a script that takes place in the story over the course of 90 minutes, over the course of, you said 17 days?
17 days, yeah.
Did that come, what kind of continuity issues are you having at that point? It seems like bare minimum you have actors and you're like, no, I really need you to match that energy you had 2 days ago.
Yeah, well, that's part of the actor's job, and that's part of me to be kind of keep an eye on to try to watch for it. And we're an independent film. We don't have 300 people working on our production where we can have dedicated people doing almost singly dedicated. I mean, our cinematographer pretty much was just dedicated to that. Okay. I was pretty much just dedicated to directing. Okay. And our sound guy was just dedicated to sound, but pretty much everybody else handled multiple jobs on the set. So, it's just for that to happen, a lot of planning goes into the process. Yeah. So 17 days of shooting. Pre-production was about 6 months. Yeah. Full-blown pre-production where we started building costumes, building the set, sketching
checking off the props list, going down, making sure everything's good.
Creating the schedule for how we were going to film it, what scenes we were going to film, down to how many minutes we were going to be able to use to film each scene, breaking it down.
So were you, I guess that's another thing too, did you, since the film is pretty linear, were you able to film it fairly in order, or did you have to jump around a little bit?
Well, because of the makeup of the set and how that set is designed, that set's actually not one piece. Okay. There are actually 2 different buildings that were filmed in, because the second floor, if you know the names of the rooms, Ghost Watch, Dog Watch, and BFR are all on the second floor. Okay. Those were a separate building that we built. Gotcha. We built they're basically both technically kind of like sound stages. Yeah. One is an actual they're both actual buildings. Yeah. One is a barn, but the first floor stuff was all shot in the barn.
Okay.
That's where the first, when they first entered, that's those two rooms right there, Chop Shop and Abbey. Those are part of the barn. But because of technically that we were gonna have to move around, we couldn't shoot everything literally in sequence.
Yeah.
So we decided early on in the pre-production, to shoot things by location.
Sure.
And
we
thought of each room as a location. So we would shoot. So we shot first day. We shot like any of the first half up to, well, not quite first half, but somewhere around the first half of all the scenes that were in BFR. And then we moved to the next day. We moved to Ghost Watch. And then we moved to Dog Watch. And then we had to shift everything down to the next room for the next day. And then we hopped back and forth a couple of times between, because, but we had to look at things like, there are a couple battle sequences that happen. And there are a couple of deaths and injuries throughout it. And so you got the continuity of making sure somebody's costume stays bloody from this point forward. And our costumer, we had to be on their toes about that. Same thing with makeup, stuff like that. So, yeah.
So did you, you said you had 2 directors on it?
No.
How many directors did you have?
Just me.
Just you? Oh, or sorry, you had the AD.
The assistant
you and the
director,
AD.
yeah. Who runs the set.
Okay, so you were split focus between doing talent direction and doing camera direction, or did you have somebody that was like maybe like a DP or a cinematographer that was more handling that kind of stuff, and you were more focused on talent, or?
I think it was kind of I mean, because as a director, I'm responsible for everything with the film, so I never completely relinquished all of the. I mean, I did very extensive storyboards. But my cinematographer was so good that on the first couple of days when we were doing some of the group sequences, which proved to be really, really fucking hard because we were in such an enclosed space. And when you put 8 bodies or 9 bodies in there,
and
get the camera and keeping everybody, it got to be. The first day of that was, I started to seriously panic, but he was able to keep in his head the framing of where things based on the storyboards and how everything was he was able to help keep the framing so that it wouldn't disorient, that I was able to relinquish that because I was like, I don't have to worry about that. A lot of previous films I would have to worry about that because my cinematographers didn't necessarily do that as well. Sean was freaking amazing at that. And so that also then gave him a liberty where he would do something. He would go, I know this was the framing for this shot from the storyboard, but what do you think about this? And I would look at it and go, oh my God, dude, are you kidding? That's fucking amazing.
And that gives him the freedom too. You'd be like, okay, these are my safety shots. These are my must-haves. And they'd be like, okay, you can play around a little bit. Like, I trust you. I know what you're doing. You have a sense for the space.
He was dynamite. And, his assistant, he had an AC and they worked so well together. It was like, I mean, they almost never had any downtime because of miscommunication between the two of them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So then that freed me up to deal a lot with working, working with the actors. We would do rehearsals. I wanted to really do some of the scene work where we would do the entire scene and we would rehearse the entire scene so they could get a flow.
So when they come back into it, it is chopped up and they get the cameras in.
You don't shoot in sequence.
Scrap the take, technical problems, you did great. So that they have that feeling to tap into at the top of it. The other thing I noticed is that for a film of the budget that you're doing, the special effects are pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So have you had experience like doing VFX before like that? Did you just have the ideas and
I
outsource?
didn't do most of the visuals.
Right, but as the director, you're the one that's like, okay, well, this is where we're going to have the effects.
Right. Well, in some of our short films, we all the short films that we did, I did all of the special effects for them.
Okay.
So I have had my hands in special effects and things like that. But this one I knew it was gonna. Now I did all the torque work. When the torque slide out.
Yeah.
I did all that.
Okay.
The Bombshell Studios did that, and the beginning and end credit sequences. Those are all ours. That's me. But everything, all the other effects, the magical effects, Hobnail's magical, things, the shard, Buttercup's shard thing. That was a slight spoiler, but that's right. But all of that was done by a post-production company out of Albany, New York called Over It.
Okay.
Like over it, I'm over it.
Yeah.
When you're done and you can't do it anymore,
Yeah.
you call over.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And
I like that. That's a good place to be. Just triage VFX. That's how you start doing. Just like, hey, are you pissed off because you watched your footage too many times? Hit us up. Well,
if you're over it, give us a call. So, and so I created a Bible for what we knew what all the effects were kind of supposed to look like. Generally, we had a schematic for the different types of magic, differences between Hobbs magic, Kaylee's magic, the Samada magic, the Nosk magic, things like that. And so there was this, extensive Bible that I created for them to understand.
Yeah.
And then,
so is that something, when you hand that off, are you handing it off to them conceptually and you're like, hey, these are kind of like, this is the kind of the vibe and the ideas that I'm going for? Is that something you're more like storyboarding and we're like, hey, this is a visual of how like I have it in my head?
No, the effects weren't really storyboarded because I didn't get that detailed with the storyboards. It was mainly for compositional stuff. I mean, they had those. But we didn't bring them on until after we'd filmed.
Okay.
So they actually were able to see the scene. So I would be able to say, here's the scene. What happens in the scene? You can see she does this thing with her. In the unprocessed. She's going like this, and her hands are going up, and there's green screen tape on the inside of her cauldron. And I'm like, so what's supposed to happen there? And I would describe it, and then sometimes I would provide some visual images of things that, like, my collection. I work very visually, so I look at a lot of images and stuff like that. And one of the things about the magic about this that was really interesting, because when they first started working on this stuff, they wanted to do this really, really like high concept sort of Doctor Strange, artifact kind of,
with like the spinning around
symbols and things like that. And I'm like, no. This is messy magic. This is ugly magic.
Right.
This is
like fast, it's rushed and hurried. And,
It's Kaylee's magic is slow to work. Very slow to work, as you can see with some of her healing and stuff like that. It takes time. It's not like poof, oh, you're healed. It's not like Harry Potter, you wave a wand and poof, there's your magic spell. Hobnails takes a toll on her throughout the whole film. You watch, so this is really messy magic. So I wanted to make sure that we're not doing it. We're not making it too I wanted to, it needed to look like it could live in that world as opposed to some magic, like Doctor Strange's magic, it works because it's supposed to look like it's not part of this world.
Right. Yeah. Because it's so tight and trained and precise.
Right. And it's because in our world, the idea is that they're based in a world where most people don't know magic exists. This is a world where magic is part of the world. Right. So it needs to be a part of it. And it's an ugly, dark, harsh, gritty, kind of grungy world. Magic always has a price. Whatever that price may be, you might not know, but it's going to.
But it's taking a toll somewhere.
Hobbs is a much more obvious because it basically zaps energy from her, knocks her out at times. It's killed other people at times that are friendlies and stuff like that. Kaylee's has a toll that's in it that's a completely different way, and you get to see some of the results of that too. But so that's where but then they working all conceptually. A lot of that is stuff that they would show me, and I would go, "Oh my God, that's so much better than I thought it was going to be." And
that's always nice when that happens. When you see it come together, you're like, "It's exactly how it was in my head, but so much better than it could have been."
That's what I like as a director. I don't like to see exactly what was in my head. Because if I do, why make the film? Bringing all these creative people in, when they show me something, I watch it, I go, "Oh my God!" That's what I really like.
Do you have any fun set stories? Anything interesting happened during the production of it?
Oh God, there's always lots of stuff. Like one of our actors quit 2 days before we started shooting.
Oh no! So did you have somebody geared up? Or?
After my initial after my initial Hulk moment, I decided, I just thought, so I had auditioned about 3 months earlier. I had auditioned some actresses for the role of Kaylee. And I thought, who do I remember from those? And I went back and looked, and I was like, she was great. I really liked her energy, and for this role, I think it would be interesting there. So she was the first one I came to that I thought about, and I immediately thought about her, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, how would you like to step into a role 2 days before?
Yeah.
It's not the role that you audition for. It's a different role, and you've got the script so you can read it. And she was like, she was supposed to start filming on Saturday. And she said, I have a wedding on Saturday. Is there any way that I could start on Monday?
Yeah.
So knowing how we had that set up, I said, if we flip-flop all three of those, if we flip-flop these two, I think we can pull that off.
Yeah.
Actually, no, she was supposed to start filming on Sunday, not on Saturday. So if we flip-flop Sunday and Monday. And because the schedule was so tight, 2 days before we start filming,
that's real tight.
Everything is really tight.
So many moving parts, and everybody's like committed. You got your call times, you got your setups.
Well, that's why the original actress quit, because she wanted a bunch of days changed, and I'm like,
oh yeah, you can't.
We can't do that.
Yeah, especially not that close. That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she said, well, maybe it's time to move on. Then I'm like, click.
Yeah.
So
sounds like it.
So we were able to flip flop those days. She showed up, and she was freaking awesome.
That's great. That's nice that worked out like that.
Yes,
because that
worked out
is
amazingly well.
Ticking time.
That was that. Yeah. She was just dynamite. So, but I mean, we had things like that. There was the one day we filming in we're on the north side of Hillsborough. So
okay.
We're right near the country.
Yeah.
So it's not like an urban area or even a really suburban area. It's more it's more country with a bit of suburb in it.
Yeah.
So we're right on the edge of that. So our neighborhood's pretty spread out too. It's not a lot of close homes. But we wanted to let everybody know, for the next 17 days, this is kind of what we're doing in the area.
Yeah.
And we said our days off are Tuesdays. So we wanted to ask everybody, if you don't mind, if you want to mow or do anything outside, could you wait until Tuesday? We will even take care of it for you if you want us to. But if you could just do that on Tuesday, it would be appreciated. Everybody's really receptive and that responded, so we didn't think it was going to be a problem.
Okay. And
then there was one day where this jackwagon decided to leaf blow during one of the days of shooting.
Yeah. And
our line producer, it started to, at first I thought, well, maybe it's not going to happen for very long. And then it kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
I'm like, we've got to do something about this. Can you go talk to them? So she ran to go talk to this guy. He was apparently a total jerk to her.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, we did talk to you guys. We let you guys know. And and he said he would stop. She came back by, went on for another 45 minutes, and then finally stopped, and we were able to get back filming. And we managed to still get it. We actually didn't get everything filmed that day. We had to do some pickups on a different day because of that. But there's all kinds of stuff like that. Changing weather. Yeah. Because we shot it October 27th to November 14th. Okay. So the first week and a half, it was really nice. Yeah. Yeah. and it was really nice. And then the last week, the temperatures dropped like 40 degrees. Yeah. Oh man. It was freezing. So some of the actors were a little cold. So and we had this huge change. So if you look at any of our behind the scenes footage, it's really funny because the first week and a half we're all the crew is in shorts and t-shirts and might have a pullover on and stuff like that. The last week, everybody's in coats and bundled up. Yeah. It's pretty funny. So.
Oh man.
So out of curiosity, what was the driving force behind choosing to do the entire movie in one house?
Budget. So
that was just a budget choice.
Yep.
Did you know that ahead of time?
That was a requirement for the film that we were going to do.
Yeah. Oh man, that's rough.
That's called necessity breeding ingenuity. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I a lot of people. Okay, people, especially artists and in the art world. There's a lot. Here's my soapbox about the art world. There's a lot of mollycoddling about artists. Yeah. Follow your dream, follow your heart, bullshit like that. Yeah. Okay, I shouldn't say complete bullshit because
everybody that watches the show is an artist. Have fun with this.
I don't. And they also agree
though.
Because here's what I'm going to tell you. Because you have two. You have a head and a heart. Yeah. Okay. If you follow one, you're going to fuck up no matter which one you follow. If you only follow one. Right. Yeah. But too much of the art world, and there's too much about art that people feel it's with our kids growing up, you can't give a kid an F in drama class in junior high school. Yeah. Huh. You can't. Try.
Yeah.
Ask around and find out any child that's ever gotten an F.
It seems like it would be difficult.
Why if a kid can get an F in math? How could you?
Like, how bad would you have to be? Like, dude,
how bad do you have to be at math tonight?
Like, you have to miss the problems.
Well,
like,
you have to miss being able to act.
My assumption is if you participate. Because like I went,
it's
like
not a
I was a high honors thespian. I was one of only 3 in the entire fucking county that had high honors thespian, and like I watched people who came in and phoned it in every day and absolutely should have gotten Fs because they didn't do anything.
Right.
Like my assumption in it.
So why didn't they get an F?
They did.
I think
those kids did, but you have to do literally nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a parent problem too, right? Because you have to. Then you're having a discussion about the subjectivity of art with a parent,
right, and that's
your kid's subjectively bad.
Well, no, at that point in time, like because it's a participation thing.
It's not participation.
Apparently it is in high school because like the thing is that yes, like there is
and
such
now
a thing
now you're getting at the root of why it's so fucking difficult to make a living at this job.
Well,
because in our society as youngsters, why isn't math class a participation class?
Because there's an actual end result in that.
There's an actual end result of being an artist and making a living as an artist as well. If you actually pursue it and pursue your craft as well as the talent part of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like a lot of people will take theater class not to do the acting part, but to do the set part, the design part.
And that's great,
both.
They actually make better livings than most actors or directors do.
I mean, like, and that's the thing is that there were a lot of kids in my drama classes all the way up through honors drama that had no acting ability and didn't pretend to, and they're like, great. I'm here to do set work.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And they have a craft, and they work their craft, and then they go out and they actually get jobs doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas most, I'm mainly talking about like performance art, the performance part, like the actors, directors, things like that. Yeah. Because people do think it's primarily subjective, and there's plenty that's objective about it.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Well, I can tell you. Agree with that.
I can tell you what is good acting and what is not good acting.
Yeah.
And so I can give you a grade on what is good acting and what is not good.
And that's the thing but it becomes subjective because it's the audience interpretation.
No, because we don't want to hurt everybody's feelings because we're all supposed to be so nice. Oh no, you let him follow his dreams. I'm like, no.
Right.
He needs to be told that's not the way it works. If he wants to follow his dreams, get better at it. And here's how you can get better at it.
Yeah.
But we don't want to do that. But we will do that for math. 2 + 2 = 4. If the kid writes down 2 + 2 = 5, we'll try to teach that kid why.
Tony, you got an F in art?
that's a professional artist that just said that.
One of the best artists I know.
Who's that?
Han Solo is a professional artist.
He's a colorist.
He's a colorist for comic books. He works on my comic. He's worked on other published comics. And he just said, I got an F in art once. And Tony, you're going to have to tell me about that later.
Well, he probably got an F in art because his art is something the teacher didn't want to support, embrace and support because it was something that was actually interesting.
My assumption is that Tony just didn't go.
That's also
me knowing Tony since high school. My assumption is Tony just didn't go.
But that's the only way. That's the only way you get an F.
Yeah.
In
not
art,
by completing projects.
He gets it.
So with all that in mind, I just the idea that money, people say, oh, you can follow your art, you don't need money. No, you don't need money to follow your art.
Right.
But let me tell you, money can help too.
Yeah, it can. It can also,
just like your head.
It also allows you to have more time to do your art.
Just like your head and your heart.
Sure. Yeah.
Money is,
and especially in filmmaking too, since it is so budget dependent and it is such a involved process with so many people and so many moving parts.
Here's a perfect example. We shot this on our property because we had this one barn and this enclosed picnic shelter where we built the second part of the shelter. We shot it there. If we had not had that, what this would have done to the budget, we would have had to find a rental space, which would have added to the budget.
Yeah.
We would have had to make sure we
Especially
had transportation.
For 17 days. Yeah.
We would have to make sure there was transportation for everybody to get to and from that place. We'd have had to make sure that the facilities were working and would have had to take care of the facilities and any power, stuff that happened at that time. With our house, we knew going in what this was going to do to our water bill, what this was going to do to and it wasn't nearly as much as it would if we'd had to go to an outside source.
Right. And especially using gasoline for electricity or anything like that. Yeah.
So our budget would have easily been inflated by another probably five figures.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
Mid 5 figures if we tried to do something like that. Unless, and yes, you can go out and, surely somebody will lend it to you. You could, just ask. Somebody will do it. We spent 4 years working on trying to get a feature film that at the time had a budget of 600, and I think the Last in the Lines, the Endless Whispers original budget was $625,000.
Yeah.
And we had some things like the city of Roxborough the mayor is really supportive of the arts. We had a long meeting with her that all of the outdoor sequences we were going to film there, they were going to waive our fees for the police to be there.
Yeah.
Shut down the street.
Wow.
And allow us to
That's
film
awesome.
there for an entire week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. So you can't, and so there was that, but then trying to find, but then the rest of it was actually, it was set on an old movie studio. So we were looking at old movie studios, and man,
you're not getting that. Yeah.
So we started looking at, well, what if we just get a big warehouse and we outfit it with movie? Well, then that incurs a cost of trying to find all the equipment and stuff like that,
and get it all done.
So money can work.
Yeah. Well, and it's all
useful.
And that's one of those things, too. I mean, because that also becomes one of those artistic choices you have to make, too. And it's like, okay, well, if I have this vision, I have a script, I have the thing I want to execute, how can I do that? Okay, well, it's easy if I have secured locations that are absolutely locked down. Or, well, okay, let me location scout, take the time resources away from everything else that I have to do, figure out what I can come up with, rewrite stuff, try to get stuff locked down for a year from now.
Right.
That's
all what pre-production is.
Sure, yeah.
It's all about logistical manipulation and trying to figure out how to make things to get to the point where the time that you have actually in production, principal photography, that goes as smoothly as possible.
Right. In service of the art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's we just got way in the weeds on that question. Your question about how.
That's how that works.
Yeah. No, that was good though. We're hitting the last little bit of the show. So every episode we do a pick section and a plug section. So if you have, me and Alex will talk about something that we've seen interesting this week that has been a creative muse to us, or something we think people should check out. If you have something, we can come to you last if you want to think of something.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, we'll let you rattle off your plugs and tell everybody where to find stuff. You have your pick ready? You don't?
You go first. I always go first.
Okay.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
So I was watching Comedy Central, and I was just, because that's what me and Taylor throw on when we're just doing stuff. And there was this show called The Other Two, and I'd seen some advertisements about it and stuff, and I didn't know too much about it. And I just happened to catch the second episode of it, and I was shocked at how funny it ended up being, and somewhat topical too. So the episode that I watched, the two characters are at a Hollywood premiere event, and she just goes up to the bar and orders drinks on Billy McFarland's tab. He's the Fire Festival guy, because she assumes that he's going to be there. And so then the guy that she came with is I didn't catch the beginning of it, but he was some kind of sort of talent agent or something. So he's talking to this Justin Bieber type kid about something, and they're talking about this character, and they're like, oh yeah, she does makeup tutorials, she's 11, her makeup's amazing. And he's like, I thought she was 30. And they're like, I know, that's how good her makeup is. And so then the girl that he came with ends up connecting with this girl, and she's like, oh, you don't have a place to stay tonight, you can come over to my house. And so it's this 30-year-old woman playing an 11-year-old character, and the perfect comedic misunderstanding. That's all I've seen of it.
It's called The Other Two?
It's called The Other Two.
And it's on Comedy Central.
It's on Comedy Central.
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds
so
good.
I'm gonna have to check it out more, because it definitely caught my interest in a way that comedies don't always do. Yeah.
I think my pick this week is gonna be a little bit of a weird one. That new barbecue burger from Wendy's.
Yeah, it's good.
It's not fucking bad. No pickles, add bacon.
What kind of barbecue?
It's kind of a sweeter, tangier barbecue sauce. Not quite as much of the heat, but the way they do their fried onions is real good, which is nice.
That's the most important part.
That's the most important part, right? Because there's actually raw onion on it, but there's also the fried onion.
Oh, really?
So it's barbecue sauce, and then they have I don't remember what kind of cheese it is. It's white cheese though.
Yeah.
So but it's not bad.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
Maybe an American.
Yeah. It's just white cheddar.
It might be white cheddar. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I also smoke a lot, so I can't really tell the difference between a burger. But
if it's
So
not
it
pepper
wasn't,
jack.
it wasn't blood. It was barbecue sauce.
it
Right?
was a little bit of both, to be honest. Like I eat enough shitty food and I smoke enough cigarettes where they're kind of
Who put
interchangeable
all this
at this
copper
point.
in my barbecue sauce?
So no, got it today. Went to Wendy's like just because we were coming home from Target, and I was like, I don't really want to cook food because I gotta go do a house showing for an investor, and fucking then I gotta come here. So I was like, let's go to Wendy's, and my kid always gets 4 for $4.
Nice.
And Sarah got the Sawsome sandwich, which was really good.
What's 4 for $4?
It's okay.
It's the
It's
best.
the best.
Four for $4.
Yeah,
Kind
it's
of thing.
4 things for $4.
Okay,
It's a drink, fries, chicken nuggets, and a sandwich for $4. It's fucking amazing.
It's great.
When I am broke, I'm just like, yes, 4 for $4.
4 for $4.
You can upsize the whole thing.
And
to
like,
like
if
80
you,
cents or
you
something. It's
upsize it, it's barely $5.
Yeah.
It's great. And
Yeah.
I have the
It's
little
perfect.
keychain thing where I get the free little tiny frosty.
Life hacks.
Life hacks.
This is our 4th Wendy's pick on this show.
It is.
You guys need to get a sponsorship for crying out loud.
I know. Oh man, we have a
Fruits
long,
are gum.
torrid relationship with Wendy's. Man.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother story.
We've killed more possible sponsors.
Oh man.
The amount of shit I've talked about Sprint on
there
the show.
was a Wendy's I used to work by there. I've told this story on the show several times, but basically they switched over their ketchup packets from like the squeezable normal regular ketchup packets to like the dipping ones and stuff. And man, I had this back and forth with this manager for like 3 months.
Oh,
and
it's
she
so
did
good.
Not, I would ask specifically, I need 3 ketchups, and she would give me 1 pack of ketchup. And the next day I come back, I'm sorry, you only give me 3. And the girl comes storming out of the kitchen. She's not at the drive-thru. She's like, I'm sorry, one of those equals 3 packs of ketchup.
And I
she was
need
like,
9 regular packs of ketchup.
No, she said, do you need 9 packs of ketchup? I said, no, I need 8. I'll bring you the 9th one back. Like, what are you? Anyway, so that's the whole thing to deal. So maybe Wendy's.
Maybe not.
I think Chris is the reason they went back to regular school.
I hope so.
But yeah, no, dude, like for real, that new sandwich is
good.
It's bomb.
Yeah.
Like, look, Wendy's makes a good burger. You can't really fuck it up by adding barbecue sauce and fried onions to it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, Wendy's, sponsor.
You have something you think people should check out?
I actually do. I just got a chance to see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh my god, it's so good.
It was fucking
It
great.
is so good.
I was, I think it's, I've been telling a lot of people that I think after Endgame, I'm done with the superhero genre for a while, because the last 5 superhero movies, despite the fact that many of them have been the highest selling superhero movies of all time, have been yawners for me.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, so this was such an amazing, because there was more character development
So
in
much
5
character
minutes of
development.
this
And,
than there was in all of
I know.
Aquaman.
Without any of the terrible exposition.
No,
Yeah.
no, I was really,
Yeah.
my
DC
wife and
doesn't
I
know how to make movies.
both really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of feel the same way about Black Panther. So
like
that's a
Black
Marvel.
Panther.
I liked it, but I don't know why it's getting the huge
Yeah, I can see
rave.
that.
I know
Yeah.
exactly why it's getting the huge raves that it's getting.
Oh well, that doesn't make a good. That's not what
It's
makes a good film.
It's still a good
My
movie.
It is a
favorite-
good movie.
My favorite thing about Into the Spider-Verse is the fact that, like, you know, as a child of the 90s, Peter Parker to me has always been about 25. And, like, as I started growing up, he started shifting into his 30s. And it is so great, but finally being able to see, like, that interpretation of Peter Parker that I know from the comic books. And
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop putting him in
I
high
loved it.
school. He hasn't been in high school since, like, the 70s. What
Right.
are you
Yeah.
doing?
When I was reading
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
It just doesn't fit anymore. But they were still able to do that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No, I
I
thought it was extremely well done. The action sequences. I had a little bit of problems with the ending. I thought the ending climax was a bit rushed.
Yeah, I can see that.
For me, but everything else about it was just. I mean, it was just a joy to watch. I'm like, I really do hope they do a second.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Because that I will go see.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about anything after Endgame. So.
You gotta watch
even know what
Endgame just to
fucking
finish
Endgame is.
It's the next. It's the culmination of
The Infinity Wars 2.
the last 10 years of Marvel movies.
Yeah, it's the one.
I'm gonna watch it so I can shit on it. You know that.
Yeah, I know. Where can people find out more about you? And
They can
Bombshell?
always go to either one of our the website for our company, which is bombshellstudios.com, or the actual the Last in Line film itself, which is there's a link on bombshellstudios.com, but it's also 40kilo.bombshellstudios.com. And coming back to money, the reason why it's called 40 kilo is that was the original budget.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
But then we sold those kilos, and now we got money.
I just like the sound of 40 kilo.
Yeah.
So it was the working title of the film before we actually came up with a working title. But 40kilo.bombshellstudios.com, and that's got a list of all the conventions we're going to, and we'll be continuing to update as we go to different for whatever conventions we're going to. And when we are also actually right now, this is a little, it's not hush hush that we're working, but we can't say who. But we're actually in negotiations with a sales agent out of Burbank, California, right now about representing us to get distribution for the film.
Yeah.
So that's why it's been delayed on us being able to get it up on video on demand sites, because we're trying to work with that.
Yeah, make sure you get everything.
Yeah, because we don't want to bite ourselves in the foot.
No.
So that's a potential, but hopefully that's going to be sometime in the next 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
And we will announce it. We've got social media. Our social medias are all linked from the website as well. So
cool. Sure. Yeah. Let us know too. We'll make sure people can find it.
Thank you very much.
Full time talking about it.
Thank you very much.
This has been Neighbor Redacted Podcast. You can find it anywhere that delicious podcasts are served. And we are live most weeks here at twitch.tv/American Feral at 9 p.m. on Sundays. I'm Chris Nielsen.
I'm Alexander Fulmer.
I don't know. Bye. I'm tired of saying dumb shit. Bye.
We could go on and fake it, but still we will break it. We make the same mistakes we always made, and no one